Hello there, and welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. I am your host, Dr. Russell Sharp from Utrema Limited. We make interesting fertilizers, novel biostimulants, and organic biopesticides. And tonight I am sat in front of a roaring fire, so you might hear that crackling away. Tonight I wanted to talk about, or today, avocado cultivation. We talked about the researchers in Norway who were looking at growing avocados in Norway to help with food security, and because they eat a colossal amount of avocados in Norway, being a very rich country and having Taco Fridays, which apparently is a big thing in Norway. But I've come across reports that hydroponics is being used increasingly in Mexico to grow avocados. And when we think of avocados, we normally think of production in Mexico. So we're going to look at why they are switching to hydroponic cultivation and a few quirky points about growing avocados, which you might not have heard about. A bit of bro science in there. And then stick around to the end because I found a very silly but funny AI tool that I've been playing around with, and I'm going to drop some content in there as well. So stay tuned. So, avocados in Mexico hydroponically. The avocado is native to Mexico, to South Central. Makes it sound like it's part of LA there, doesn't it? Dating back 9,000 to 10,000 years, the fruit was domesticated by various Mesoamerican groups by about 5,000 BC. So it is endemic to Mexico, which means that it only grows in Mexico naturally. And so yeah, that's a good thing and a bad thing from cultivation in Mexico. It means the environment must be perfect for it, but it also means that all the pests and diseases that evolved with it are still there. So, as we know, hydroponics has got well established in vegetables and some berry crops, but there is a movement to hydroponic cultivation. There are a few growers who are growing it in shade tunnels and net tunnels, and they're growing what is essentially trees in there. They're using air pots, and I think they're using coco. So an air pot system, it's an expensive crop, so you can invest in things like that. In the UK, when I've grown avocados in a greenhouse, even a heated greenhouse, I've used a pot-in-pot system, which is almost like giving it double glazed glass. It gives you a bit of insulation in there to extremes of temperature. So that's a good one to use. They're using a lot of sensors. There's large greenhouses, almost like, the large blueberry or raspberry growers. So think lots of netted tunnels like you would in raspberries or blueberries. What I term MyPex, I think that's a trade name. Basically that plastic sheeting down, and then either the air pots or the bags, the netted bags holding the cocoa grow media, and then drip irrigation going into every single plant. And so just like you would in any other crop, then that's fed with a dilute solution of fertilizer. So that's really interesting. Obviously, this is a multi-year perennial crop as well, so that comes with its own challenges. Now, obviously, with avocados, you've got to keep them frost-free and the ideal temperatures of 15 to 29 degrees Celsius. So that is very warm. And dry winds, cold, strong dry winds is what it's particularly sensitive to. There is the Hass variety, which you will have come across, that will actually tolerate mild frosts, believe it or not. But young trees are extremely vulnerable. And that's one of the things I haven't talked about when it comes to cold stress, is when it comes to perennials, the younger plants are always more sensitive. Okay. It does need a well-drained grow media, probably why they're using air pots. And so they hate to have their feet wet. Very few plants like to have their feet wet. Even wasabi and willows don't like stagnant water. And the pH is 6 to 6.5. So really in the sweet spot, sort of pH you would get if you were using gold leaf in the US or liquid gold in the UK. The problem is that people probably apply too much water when it comes to avocados, keep them too wet. They like to be moist but never saturated, just like other hydroponic crops when they're grown in soil and cocoa. Frequent light irrigation is better than deep soaking, but depends if you're going for a complete hydroponic system or semi-hydroponics with cocoa. And then if you do get root rot, it's probably Phytophthora that's going to be in there. So you're going to need at least 6 to 8 days of full sun and shading will reduce flowering of fruit sets. It's not one of these shrubs that needs a bit of shade. It needs a fair amount of nitrogen. And one of the common deficiencies is zinc deficiency. So making sure you've got the pH correct. And that's interesting that you would go for zinc before iron. And then obviously being a fruit crop, pollination is important. And they have two types, a type A flower and a type B flower. And planting one A type and one B type variety increases the yield. And bees are the main pollinator. So maintaining bee activity is crucial. So if you haven't took into effect its unusual pollination mechanism, then you could come into issues because it's self-incompatible, just like apples. With apples, you can't just plant one variety. You need a pollinator. And so you might have a Hass with a Pinkerton with a reed, or which are type A. So you wouldn't have those together. You'd have one of those, and then you'd have one of Fuerte, Bacon, or Zutano. They're really different names, aren't they? Bacon and Fuerte, Hass, Pinkerton. Sounds like one's American, one's British, one's Spanish, all sorts of crazy names there. So yeah, you need one of the A's and one of the B's together. It only needs to be one plant to get the pollination to overcome that self-incompatibility. The main pest and disease of avocado, we talked about it, Phytophthora, but it's not Phytophthora ramorum, which is the more common one in the UK. It's Phytophthora cinnamomi. Thrips, as always, mites, various boring insects into the stem, sunburn and fungal diseases. So good drainage and avoid trunk injury to prevent those borers getting in. Yeah, the crop requires pruning, so light pruning when young to shape them. They aren't grown to full size, just like apple trees aren't nowadays grown to full size. They're kept small to ensure that you don't have to go up a ladder to harvest them, and so same with here. So very similar to apples in that sense. Dead plant material has to be removed every year, and just avoid heavy pruning. And they're spaced around 4.5 to 9 meters apart, which is 15 to 30 feet if you're working in old money or American money. And the high density orchards require pruning and management, so you need a good amount of cheap labor. So probably why it's not done universally in all warm countries. And then avocados, obviously the key thing with avocados is getting them ripe at the right time. Avocados mature on the tree but ripen after picking, and knowing when an avocado is ripe is a real issue. And it's all about controlled environment storage, and then ethylene-induced ripening and things like this, and making sure, there's a car alarm going off outside, making sure that they are, it's took me off my train of thought, that making sure they are ripe but not bruised or overripe at the point of harvest is a real art in itself. That's why the distributors earn the money they do. And the Hass variety is usually harvested once the skin begins to darken and the fruit reaches its proper size. So there's the basics, and then I'm going to go into some interesting, novel, quirky facts about avocado cultivation. There is some bro science out there, or has been out there in the past, saying that avocados are the one species that you don't want to wash the seeds to aid germination. You actually want to plant the whole fruit to improve germination. Well, I did an experiment on this about 15 years ago, and I planted whole avocados versus avocado seeds I'd harvested from avocados I'd eaten, and got 100% germination in the ones that I'd harvested and cleaned, and 0 germination in the ones where I just planted the whole fruit. So that's a load of nonsense. So you can ignore that. Many people outside of Mexico, in Europe and America and other places, will try and grow an avocado plant from the avocado seed. It's very tempting, and you can get the plants to grow, and you can get a very big plant, and you think you've got the ideal conditions. But you've got to remember that seed is full of oil. It's a massive seed, and that can sustain a young plant in suboptimal conditions for a long time. So you might think, oh yeah, it's green, it's growing well, but you're living on borrowed time. The ability to get it to 3 foot, 4 foot, that's when you know whether you're actually growing it correctly. You know, there's the toothpick technique. There's loads of techniques of growing avocado. I'm not going to go into them because they're basic. And basically, if you stick an avocado seed in some water or some grow media, it's going to germinate, grow. So don't overthink it really when it comes to avocados. The key, the real skill comes in maintaining that plant and getting it to grow. Not sticking it next to a radiator in a centrally heated room with no light in the middle of winter is always a good option as well, because that will kill any houseplant at all. So a cool, well-lit area in the winter if you are in somewhere like England or Ireland or north of USA, south of Canada. The self-incompatibility in avocados is what I mentioned. You need a type A and a type B. That's not due to self-incompatibility genes like it is in apples. It's down to the male and the female parts of the flower maturing at different times of the year. So that's why you need the two different varieties. It's not, if you were to match them up somehow, you could grow just one variety, but it's they're hermaphrodite flowers, but the anthers, the pollen becomes mature at a different time to the signet, or becomes receptive and things like that. In plants, this strategy is known as dichogamy. Okay, while as animals, it's known as sequential hermaphroditism. So, like some animals will become male and then will become female, or vice versa. Gardeners or horticulturists who are unsure of this unusual reproductive strategy can often suffer from a lack of success when planting avocado bushes. So especially if you've just grown a load of avocado seeds and you're a newbie. Now for some sad news. It's thought that the avocado evolved alongside the giant sloth. And it was this giant sloth eating avocados that would disperse the seeds around south central Mexico. Unfortunately, the giant sloth died out a few millennia ago, and so now the avocado plant doesn't have its natural pollinator in its native environment or anywhere, because giant sloths don't exist anymore. Sad times. Avocados are what is termed a basal angiosperm. Okay, so basal angiosperms. And this is a group of plants that are basically a dumping ground for a set of unrelated plants that botanists struggle to understand how are they related and how they evolved. So includes magnolias and magnolia-like plants, birthworts, wild gingers, which I'm very interested in, laurels, avocado, nutmeg, black pepper, but also water lilies and other obscure plants like star anise we talked about Tamiflu and things like that. So it's a poorly understood how it evolved, and it's not beetle pollinated, but it's in those magnolia type plants. So very unusual, but very interesting group of plants. Along with sassafras, which I think that's root beer, isn't it? Root beer made from sassafras? Or similar, lots of beverages are. So that's been avocado cultivation. If you've grown avocados in like 100% true hydroponics, not semi-hydroponics, so if you've grown it in NFT or DWC or anything like that, ebb and flood with an inert media, then please get in touch. I'd love to know more about how you did it and your success rates. Perennial crops are always difficult, but one as unusual as avocado, I think, would be doubly difficult. I think lots of people grow avocados hydroponically, where they put the seed sort of suspend it over the water. But that's very much the sort of cracky method. You soon get algae buildup eventually, and people move on to soil cultivation, or certainly cocoa and compost cultivation after that. So that's been Hydroponics Daily for today. Hope you found it interesting. If you did, please leave an Apple Podcast review, because it helps share the podcast with other people, because it gets us up the charts, which I'm really excited about. Now we're getting into the winter and no one's listening to gardening podcasts. If you're not listening on Apple Podcasts, don't bother leaving a review, because it doesn't help. But please do make sure you follow the podcast and check out utrema.co.uk, because I'm sure if you're in hydroponics and you've never come across this before, you'll find something really interesting, because we've got some really interesting technology not found in any other company's portfolio. And now for the complete AI nonsense that I've discovered, and I will be subjecting you to at the end of every episode for the next week. Feel free to stop listening now if you find it really terrible and cringe. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time, goodbye.
In a world of roots with no dirt to show, lights above where the water flows slow, leaves reaching up like they already know. tuned as the green dreams rise. Nutrients dance under LED skies. No garden gloves, just tech that's wise. Plant the seed, watch it thrive. Science keeps the green alive. Grow it right, grow it tall. No soil, no mess, no dirt at all. Hydroponics daily, we're standing tall. Grow it right, grow it tall. No soil, no mess, no dirt at all. Hydroponics daily, we're standing tall. Raindrops are jealous, they can't compete. Precision farming, it's the new beat.